rising, great being, great ending, depending on what part of time this reaches you. I hope everybody's doing well and doing good. If not, of course, I'm always sending peace, love, and blessings to you all. Sending peace, love, and blessings to you, and I hope any of this content can aid you in another direction. As always, let's start it off right. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I will trust in the Lord with all my heart. Lean not to my own understanding. In all my ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct my path. He shall direct your path. He shall direct our path. Let us get on the right path together. Speaking of, this is the day. I have a new guide out to encourage you guys to look at every day as God's will, as long as we are in alignment. And if you struggle day to day with finding the beauty in each day, again, I always say life is beautiful when we allow it to be, but it's always easier said than done. Even the affirmation prayer that we say, this is the day the Lord has made, and rejoicing in it and being glad in it, and letting God direct you and not leaning to your own understanding, that is easier said than done. So if you really struggle with that, I have a new guide out on Amazon.com, on Kindle right now. Then we will have the paperback out shortly. But check it out. Again, I try to do my best to give everybody every resource possible. Of course, I'm going to always refer you guys to take things to God and to do your own reading in the Bible. But again, these are just journals and guides that I put out under Divine Conscious Efforts, and be sure to check it out. It's a beautiful read, full of prompts, full of journal ideas, just to help you get through each day and so forth. So be looking out that. The link is in the description of the main page of this channel. That out the way. I have been faced with a set of challenges regarding my patience with certain situations day to day. So this video, I'm going to touch on my testimony for putting things and leaving things in God's hands and staying strong to my faith, not just with him and my relationship with him, but his will. To all my parents out there, if you are a parent, you know it's not easy. It comes with its day-to-day challenges, especially when you have multiple children, and then specifically in my situation, the dynamics of my children is in many directions. It's east, west, and north, literally. So I've been getting tested and challenged to, almost take things in my hands. I touch on it briefly in several videos, but just to give my testimony, which is where I got the wisdom of this information. Like, it's such a beautiful thing, guys, when you can just have such a rapport with God and such a beautiful relationship with God, to be able to have such a strong faith that you just trust him no matter what the outcome and no matter what it looks like. And that's my testimony. I just remember when I first left my kids back in 2016, 2017, for me to get myself together, and eventually that became the growth of my relationship with God and my understanding of God and what he wanted from me, and understanding myself and my purpose, and what my traumas and all these things that I had to do that and journey along with that. But it didn't come easy for me. It was very hard because I'm from the Midwest, so to leave the Midwest and go all the way to the Southwest and find myself in a state that, if you ask me, I didn't fit, I didn't belong. But it was such a torment and torture for me at the time, because again, I lacked that understanding of what God was doing in my life, and what I was doing, not just as a person, but as a father. I went through a lot of traumas, with my parents, and I felt like I was repeating a cycle, and, all these worries started to flood me, and just the transition wasn't the easiest. It wasn't the best, not for me nor my kids. And, it really, the result, how things were with me and the moms, and just so many things were pulling me. Just so many things were pulling me. And I just did not understand why I was so conflicted and confused until later, years later, I realized that God was doing what he needed to do for me to get to the place I needed to be, to understand what he was doing and why he was doing what he needed to do, so I can accept what role I played in his will and in my life, which eventually go hand in hand, becoming a leader for my children. So regardless of what it looked like, it worked out. I always thought that my kids would forget about me and hate me and not understand, but it was the complete opposite. And that's the beauty of God. That's the beauty of God, because I know it was God who kept my children's heart and minds protected, no matter what they were hearing, no matter what they were being told in regards to their father and what their father was doing and not doing. And it ended up being that me leaving and all the things I was worried about end up being the exact thing that protected the relationship with my kids. I was so open and so vulnerable with my kids when people told me not to. I was so expressive with my kids when people told me kids are too young for that. But, God instilled it in my heart to, be open with my kids, be vulnerable with my kids, and trust him, just trust him. It was always in my inner knowing, in the back of my mind, even if I wasn't always obedient to it, because that's part of the testimony too. I wasn't always obedient to how God wanted me to handle it. And in a sense, I stepped out of his will and I tried to do things on my own way and my own understanding. And I tried to direct my own path. Essentially, that made things worse and that made things harder, not just on me, but on my kids, on the situation, So once I'll just never forget that night, homeless, hotel to hotel, in the car, just crying out to God, like, God, I don't know what to do here. I feel like everything's out of my control. And I just remember that inner warm feeling like, my son, just trust me. Just focus on you. Trust me. I got your kids. Just put them in my hands. Give the gift that I gave to you, gift it right back to me. And trust me. He just kept saying, trust them. Trust them. And that's exactly what I had to do. And it wasn't easy, but I did it. And now where things are things the best? No. Is everything completely worked out? It's not. But the testimony is the beauty in trusting God's will. When you put things in his hands, that God has a love for you and a love for the things that people are attached to you, to work things out in the way only he can. See, we want to handle things in a way that only God can handle. And that's part of my testimony right now. My kids love me. My kids will tell you right now, there's nothing that anybody can say about their dad. They know how their dad feels about them. They understand me. It's more than just my kids not being understanding of what I'm going through, but it's more so of they have their own perspective and idea of what dad does and who and how dad is and why dad has to be gone. And there it shows in their response. I just remember breaking down in front of my kids like, I'm sorry I failed y'all, and they will remind me, no, Dad, you didn't fail us. You doing what you had to do for you. We want you to be happy. We want you to be good. Because I think about it, at a time I was single, and I remember my daughters coming to me like, Dad, you need somebody. And it's just things like that where your kids can be so in tune with you and so connected to life to where they can understand what you're going through and not judge you for it like I did, and like I did my parents. And it was such a beautiful thing to be able to come back and be with my kids and have family times, and it's like we ain't miss a beat. You see, and that's something only God can do. That's something only God could have done in my life, because I know what the relationship was between me and the mothers. I know where I was at a point in time, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I know the type of hardened heart that I had at a point in time when it came to wanting to work certain things out with the mothers or trusting people. And it was only God. It was the grace and beauty of God that came in and protected that family dynamic, as far as me as a father and fatherhood, and my kids having a father, but not always being their father, not always being available to them in a healthy way, to where as kids, you like to compare. You see other kids, you see other family dynamics, and sometimes that can be the trauma. So there was so many factors that God protected me and my kids from, that allow us in this present moment to still appreciate each other, to still love each other, to still to have empathy and sympathy, and to just still crave each other and love each other no matter what is going on in life. And I give all glory and honor to God for that transition for my kids and myself and us together as a family, because I know it was nothing but the graces and the hand of God. So if you're going through any type of situation that you're really struggling with, I'm here to tell you to put it in God's hands and build that relationship with God, so that when you put it in God's hands, He can work on you, so you can understand the bigger picture. You can understand why He's doing the things the way He's doing it, so you can hear that instruction, so you know what you need to do to be prepared for when things become different, when things change. I made a video on that. Go check that out. And it's so, God's hand is so big, it's so wonderful, it's so perfect in Him, not us, but in Him. Our problem is we want to cater to how we want things and our perspective of things, but nothing in this world can outweigh God's perspective of His plan and His will for us, and the type of protection He can put over you, the type of protection thank you, Holy Spirit, the type of protection He could put over your family to guide things to where they will come together in a healthy way, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually under Him. And that's my testimony. And I hope you guys can hear it. I hope you guys can see it. At the end of the day, when you are out of you don't know what to do anymore, when you're all out of options, when you're all out of energy, when you're all out of hope, when you're all out of belief, when you're all out of trying, when you're tired of caring, those are all the signs when it's time to pray and get closer to God and really just put those things in His hands, and then walk away and get you together and get you and God together, so that together you and Him can be in preparation for His will and how His perspective and what He can do in His mysterious ways that only He can do in those ways, so things can pan out differently. So I hope that really helps somebody, especially fathers, because I know it's a lot of times where we feel like mothers have more control, especially when you live in a woman state and you feel like, all you want to do is be a father, and you got to deal with all these other obstacles and conditions in your fatherhood, especially mothers, when you feel like you're dealing with irate fathers or fathers who just want to use the children to get access to you when you want to move forward in your life. These are things that you have to pray to God for, and that's the moment where you have to pray for your co-parent. That's when you have to pray for your children and not just yourself, so that it'll come together cohesively and under God and turn out as beautiful as God intended it to be. So as always, never give up, never settle, always love yourself. Remember, God loves you, and that life is beautiful when we allow it to be. One love.